And good afternoon. My name is Ryan Bellamore. I am the owner and publisher of What's Up Noop, and we are continuing our conversations with the candidates. I have been focusing over the last week or so on local candidates. You can find a whole series of interviews that we've already done on Aquidneck Island on whatsupnoop.com. When we jump to the statewide races, my pal, Mr. Frank Prosnich, joins me, and Frank is here. Frank is here, and there you are, Frank.
I thought I was suddenly, I was a little.
You're a mini-me.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And Frank, we are just 4 weeks from today is the general election.
1 week from tomorrow is the beginning of early voting.
It is. It's sneaking up on us. We've been talking about the election forever. For some people, it feels like it's sneaking up on us. For others, they're ready for this to be over. But we are jumping the statewide races. One thing I will make note is if people visit whatsupnoop.com, they can see our full schedule of interviews that are coming up this month and next. And I'll say it again, it's in the story. We've invited every candidate in every single race to join us. We have put time aside for every candidate in every local, which Newport County race, as well as statewide race. All available on whatsupnoop.com. Something else I've been doing is I realize there's a lot to consume. So I've turned all of them into podcasts. So people can listen if they're driving, working, walking the dogs, whatever else they might be doing. They can listen to every single interview as a podcast. It's available on whatsupnoop.com or where you listen to all your favorite podcasts.
And I would urge people to do that because what our goal is to provide you with as much information as you can get in order to be able to vote as an informed voter. That's just incredibly important. It's important to vote, and as important to vote informed. And this way, you get to know the candidates, you get to hear them, you get to understand what their positions are, and then you can see which one fits into what your lifestyle is, who you want to represent you in a particular office. So I think these are important certainly important to absorb.
One last note before I step out of the way and let you do your thing. Vote.ri.gov. You can go on, put in your address of where you live. You can view your sample ballot. Very important to do, not just to see what candidates' races, but also when you flip it over. In Newport, you have 10 questions. Middletown, you have 6 questions. Everybody has 3 statewide questions, and then each town has a variety of local issues as well. Vote.ri.gov.
And sometimes those bond referenda are as or more important than the other election. We certainly in Middletown and Newport, where the question of regionalization of schools is on the ballot, in Middletown, where there's a bond issue for new school construction, these are issues that will have a tremendous impact on the communities in a lot of different ways. So important you take a look at that sample ballot.
Who are we talking to today there, Frank?
Talking to Jim Lathrop. He is a Republican candidate for General Treasurer, former he is a North Kingstown finance director right now. Actually was in Portsmouth. He was the deputy town administrator of Portsmouth. Also, I think finance director of Portsmouth. He's done the same thing for in Westerly and in Hopkinton, and is very familiar with that position. And also prior to that was and still is a CPA and had his own business. How are you, Jim?
I'm doing well, and I always had a liking for Aquidneck Island. They've been very supportive during this campaign. They remember me back from my Portsmouth time, so it's nice getting to visit the state, and thank you for having me on the show this morning.
Well, it's great to have you on. And did I miss any communities? New London, I guess, also. But there aren't too many voters in New London who will come out for you.
No, you never know. But yeah, I was in New London for a while, and I've been around a lot of communities. I think I've done good work in Portsmouth. We became AAA rated during my time. Only the second community in Rhode Island to reach that level for financial soundness.
What? First of all, why now that you would move from finance director, which is, I guess, pretty secure position, to wanting to jump into a statewide race for General Treasurer. What motivates you to do that?
Well, I work with the treasurer's office a lot through my finance jobs. And, I'd seen over the last decade now that it's become much more political. It became a stepping stone for career politicians who really were using it to advance their career to the next level, governor, Congress, whatever they were looking at. And they lost focus on what their job was. The job of treasurer is very technical, but in many ways simple. Manage the pension, manage the cash, and a couple programs that the treasurers oversee. It's an elected position, but it's not a political position, and that's what it had become. And sometimes when you complain, you need to step up. If you're going to want to make change, you need to make an effort. And I thought this was the time. I'm in a good point in my life so that I could do it. And my current employer, North Kingstown's been very supportive of it. So that's why I'm running. I believe that a professional needs to be in the office.
Do you have aspirations beyond the treasurer's office?
No. For a financial guy, this is the peak of the mountain. I don't want to be governor. I don't want to be Congress. I hope I get elected and then I can get reelected, do my 8 terms. At that point, I'll be in my 60s. I really would like to retire. I was kidding this morning that I don't know, maybe I'll become a radio host after this. But politics, it's a tough game. There's a lot of negative stuff that goes on that I think turns people off, and there's a lot of need to raise money. I think that keeps a lot of people out. We forget what our purpose is. Our purpose is to serve the people and to make the state better. And that's all I really want to do through the treasurer's office.
From your perspective as a finance director of a number of towns, as a deputy town administrator, and looking in at the treasurer's office, where do you see the flaws and where do you see the need and influence that you might have on making change?
Well, I think some of it is just on the pensions itself, the investments. They get into some very sophisticated stuff. I'm a simple guy, kind of that old Yankee swamper that, I like what I like. I want sound companies. I think in the long term, they are what they do best. But I also think the treasurer's office needs to be more proactive. When I started in government, no one really reached out to me. The first time I had to issue debt on the town level, I had to figure it out myself. I think that's where the treasurer's office can become more involved with communities in helping them manage some of their finances or providing some support when they're talking to the rating agencies. And also, I think financial education, as far as not only for our kids, but our adults. Adults are going through a lot of difficult times. And I think that's where the treasurer's office, we have a lot of great people. The treasurer's office, you don't realize it, but there's 90 staff people there. That's a lot of people, and a lot of people who have good financial backgrounds, and we should be able to help more in the community.
You touched on a subject that that I've often, and I haven't talked about it or seen in a while, but I know that early on in Seth Magaziner's term, he mentioned it. And I also had done a little bit of work with Northwestern Mutual, and that's financial literacy. And that being a real important point and something that was spearheaded. I don't know where it ever went in terms of the treasurer's office. Do you see a role of the treasurer in dealing with financial literacy, maybe working with the schools?
And I think Seth has really brought it more a little bit into the school system, that there's a requirement. But you forget about the adults, the young adults, the seniors. I have older parents, or my mother's still alive. How are they going to need to invest their money? How are they going to deal with issues like mortgages or reverse mortgages? We focus on the young, and they are the future of the state. But I think there's a lot of adults and a lot of business owners. When I was a CPA in practice, the businesses that failed were not because they didn't know their business, but they didn't know the business end of their business. They may have been a great cook and ran a great restaurant, but they didn't know the finances behind it. Goldman Sachs here in the state has a great program through CCRI to help people who are in business with that. And I think promoting those type of opportunities for individuals and even doing some of it themselves is where the treasurer can be more proactive and make a difference in the state as a whole.
I mean, you make a great point. I think that I think about a lot of seniors who probably lack that financial education, that literacy, and yet as they move into retirement years or in retirement years, are bombarded from every corner with all kinds of proposals. They get invited to dinners to talk about what to do with their money. They hear about a reverse mortgage. And so I think it becomes a real confusing time for a lot of people, well beyond their high school or even college education.
And I think that's where the treasurer's office, not only can we do it, but work with other agencies. I think the libraries around the state, they're a huge resource. They've become mini community centers in many ways. Work with the libraries so that when people come in and if they're checking out for information, to let us know, do some programs there. One of the things that I did here in North Kingstown was I actually had the treasurer's office come down and explain pensions to our employees. We had a lot of people who were in the system, but they didn't know when they could get out, what kind of benefits they would receive. And again, I asked for it and they reacted to it. But I think the treasurer's office needs to be more proactive in saying, we're going to come to your town and talk to you about these issues at the senior center, at the library, and come on over and ask us the questions.
So one of the big things, of course, that the treasurer's office does is it invests the money for the state of Rhode Island. How have we done?
This last year, we've done well in the fiscal year that ended. However, currently, from what I hear, they've lost about $1 billion. But everybody's down. I know my own personal portfolio is down about 12% this year because of the markets. And I think that's why you need me. My opponent, while maybe a nice person, has no financial background, criminal justice major, who's the mayor of a city with a budget, around $15 million. And he's publicly stated he owns no investments, no stocks, no bonds. He's never done it. He's going to rely on experts. It's great to have a team, but at some point you need to understand what your team is giving you. And I think that's what I bring. The state needs to do better on managing the fees that they pay. They're still around 1.9%. I think they should be around 1.2% as far as overall on our investments. I don't like to talk bad about people. I want people to know why I'm so qualified and why you should elect me. But if you look at it, we can do better. And 1 or 2% difference on $10 to $12 billion really is a lot of money. And that's what we need to start thinking about.
The state pension system, and of course, a lot of state employees rely upon the viability of the pension system. Tell me if I'm correct. I was my understanding that the judicial pension system was not part of the actual state pension, but rather was independent and run out of the general fund. Am I correct on that?
I believe so. All the pensions are still separate. There's the teachers and the public safety and municipal employees, but the investment pool was combined so that they've taken all the cash and manage it in the same way. So, teachers are one of the least funded. I think they're a little over 50% funded, where some communities are 90% funded. When we talk about education, these are things that teachers are concerned about, and even young teachers. Is my pension going to be there for me? They haven't got their cost of living increases in over a decade. Just think if your pay was frozen from what you were receiving 10 years ago, could you be surviving today? And I think teachers are especially at risk because they don't participate in the Social Security service program. So as a police officer, while your pension may be frozen, at least with Social Security, that piece, you're getting the cost of living increases, which this year is going to be around 8%. I think we need to understand that. It's easy for me as a technical guy to get into the weeds and people kind of stop listening. But at the end of the day, if we don't have these money, you're going to be paying for it as a taxpayer, that your taxes are going to increase so that we can meet our obligations. Unfortunately, we don't want to cut benefits. I know Central Falls and my opponent, to get out of bankruptcy, that's what he did. He took money away from the pensioners and from the employees. That's not what it's about. We have an obligation to people. We have to look at their face every day. I go to the restaurant or the grocery store. I don't want someone complaining that I've taken away their money. We just need to do a better job.
So you mentioned that the teachers' pension plan is about 50% funded. So then that leads to the question, of course, how big is our unfunded liability, and is it now becoming problematic on a statewide level that we need to address? And then I don't know how far you get into the municipalities, but I wonder where we are with the municipalities and the unfunded liabilities from town to town, and how big a problem that is.
Overall on the municipalities, they're about 90% funded, but there's the goods and the bads. I think what the state does is they take the unfunded liability, and so not only do you pay what you owe, but you've got to pay towards that unfunded liability, but it's spread over 20 years. So they are addressing it, but when you start to think about it, if you're that teacher or that former police officer and you're saying, I've just retired, but if they've got a plan that takes 20 years to get back to funded where I can get my COLAs, that could outlive my lifetime. That during my lifetime, I may never see a cost of living increase. And that's unfortunate because these people, you may know it, I've seen it, who have retired and are now taking part-time jobs just to supplement their income because the benefits that they were promised and expected just aren't there.
So one of the things I think I'm correct on also is that the state employees fund, that the state employees pay into it a significant amount on a weekly basis, and then if I'm correct, in order to be vested in that plan, you have to have been employed for 5 years in state government.
Correct.
But if you leave prior to that, say you leave after 4 years, and the money that you have put into the program has earned money for the pension fund, all you get back if you take it out is dollar for dollar what you put in. So actually you lose. You would have been better off if you put that money into some kind of a private account and allowed it to accumulate. Am I correct? Or
yeah, you're very correct, and those are some of the discussions that I've had. I've met with different unions that they want to make the pensions a little more portable, vesting a little bit quicker, and I think those are all good ideas. But again, at some point, there's a cost associated with those, and we've got to figure that out. I think so. Council 94, the biggest state employee union, 10,000 members. This last week endorsed me for treasurer. It's the first, I'm the only Republican that they've endorsed. It's the first time they've endorsed a Republican since 2014. At the end of the day, they listened to their membership, but they also looked at the qualifications of me and my opponent. And they said, who do I want my money with? The treasurer's office is an elected position, but not political. We have no policy making. We're not talking about guns or rights. We're all about the money. And at the end of the day, I give credit to Council 94. It's a big step for them to not endorse a Democrat, but they knew what was best for their membership and they believed in me. I'm very appreciative of that. And I think that's what you'll see from me compared to my opponent. And I hope people vote for me when elections come up. We do have our first debate on October 18th, just the day before early voting starts. And early voting is a great idea, but you need to make sure that you're informed when you do that vote. Have you looked at both candidates? Have you looked at all the issues, all the local issues that, and Aquidneck Island is facing and other communities throughout the state? Make sure that you're informed before you vote.
On Aquidneck Island, one of those huge questions that looms for both Middletown and Newport is the question of regionalization of schools, and also in Middletown, a significant bond issue for building new schools within that community. The rate of reimbursement by the state goes up substantially if the schools regionalize, and then future capital investments, also the reimbursement goes up considerably. What would you say to voters in both communities? And I don't know how familiar you are with that situation. What would you say to them as they go to the polls on those issues?
I think if they're going to do it, this is the time to do it. The rates are going up. You're going to start paying more for it. And you have to start thinking about what is better for your children and the communities as a whole. I do believe in regionalization for a lot of things, not just school, but a lot of the services. Rhode Island is 39 communities, but when you compare our size and the number of people to other states and how they've regionalized either on a county basis, if you're going to want to control your taxes, this is the way to do it. You eliminate the number of administrators. You're not cutting back on the teachers. You're eliminating some of that higher level stuff that really is very costly. It's a great idea. It's just, when I was in Wesley, the reason that they hired me was to consolidate the school and the town's finance departments. It used to be two separate departments. I came in, we merged them. I never fired a person, never laid off a person. We did end up losing almost 5 FTEs, but we did it all through attrition. People either retired, they'd gotten another job, or they moved to another department. So at the end of the day, we eliminated 5 people just by combining resources within the town. We didn't need 2 purchasing agents and 2 accounts payable clerks and those type of things. We're going to have to make tough decisions because before you know it, taxes are going to continue to go up. And this is a great opportunity to help maintain a livable income.
You mentioned regionalization. One of the things that when I worked for the Journal, I used to take a look at communities, and I always got a kick out of the town of Gloucester, where they had a police department of 2 police officers in their own building, and across the street was the state police headquarters. And I always wondered, why couldn't they all be in the same building and not have to pay all of those fees associated with a separate building? And I think that goes on with a lot of services throughout the state.
And I do. And I think people want to have control and be able to make decisions about their communities. But you got to trust each other. I think we all have the same common goals. I talk about my opponent. While I feel I'm more qualified, at the end of the day, we both have a common goal that we want a better state. We want better things done. It's just who can actually do it. When we start talking about police, dispatch is a great avenue. That you may have separate police forces, but can you have a regional dispatch center? It's a trust factor. And I think that was in Wesley when I was the combined director. It was because we were in an environment where this town council, and the school committee trusted each other. The superintendent and the town manager worked together and trusted each other. And we communicated on a very regular basis so that no one felt like there were secrets. In me, the agreement was either the town manager or the superintendent could terminate me. They didn't need to do it both. So it also kept me very honest, knowing that I'm serving kind of 2 masters, but I had to be, fair and objective so that both felt I was looking out for their best interest.
A couple of areas that Seth Magaziner concentrated on while in office successfully so was the infrastructure bank and the school building program. He being pretty much the voice and the power behind these bond issues, but also making sure that we had all these school building programs. Are those areas that you would see yourself continuing to be an influence in?
I do. A lot of the school buildings go through what they call RIBAC, Rhode Island Housing, Education, and Building Corporation. I work with them now on a fairly regular basis. I would be very involved with that. I do think we can change how we do some of the funding formula for schools. The reimbursement rates, instead of getting it over time, getting it up front so the communities can borrow less money. I think that would be a great avenue. I think the infrastructure bank, as they continue to grow, it used to be just about water and sewer, and now they've got into roads and bridges and a lot energy. Here in North Kingstown, we borrowed some money from them to move all our street lightings to LED. We've got a pretty quick repay on those type of things. Yeah, the treasurer's office is about getting the funding at a reasonable cost. And, my relationship with all the rating agencies, S&P and Moody's and even Fitch, which is a little bit on the smaller side, I think helps me. So when I go in and talk to these people, they know me. I've always been honest with them. I've disclosed the good things and the bad things about, issues that we face, so that they know I have a transparent approach to things, because those are big. 2 or 3 points when you're borrowing hundreds of millions of dollars is a lot of money. And transparency is a big thing with me. I don't know if you saw, I took a transparency pledge. I wrote it up because everybody talks about transparency. Well, what is it? So I made it very specific for the treasurer's office that will identify investments, will identify fees, will identify advisors. And I was very proud that it got picked up by Forbes magazine. And they wrote a little article about it saying that, this is an example of what states should be doing, if they really believe in transparency. And, those what I do here in the communities is, we post every single check that we write online, other than payroll. So if someone wants to see where's my money going, you can just, we don't have it quite in searchable data yet, but that's something we're working on. But if you want to say, how much do I spend? Well, I get called on Socrates Pizza here in North Kingstown. What'd you spend $100 at Socrates Pizza for? Well, the recreation department, their camp program had a luncheon for all the kids, and we bought pizzas there. Oh, okay, thank you. It wasn't like we were out buying pizzas for the employees. Transparency brings better government, and that's what really I believe in.
One of the issues that often comes up with the treasurer's office, I believe, is the selection of advisors. And I've heard the argument that we don't use many advisors from within the state, but often from out of the state. Do you have any kind of observation on what we're doing now and what you would like to do as we go into the future?
Well, I think a lot of the advisors are just based out of New York, the financial capital of the country. But we also, as I mentioned earlier, the treasurer's office has 90 people who work there. We have quite a few, chief investment officers and finance people. We need to use our in-house staff more. They're all smart people. They get paid very well. They actually get paid more than the treasurer. It's actually one of the lower end paid jobs within the office. We can do that. And we have some great people here in the state. I believe in keeping the money here as much as possible.
Len Ladero, the economist at the University of Rhode Island, has been a strong advocate for doing in-house due diligence. His argument is that often the state will go out to consultants that they'll bring in at a certain fee or probably a high fee to go out and do the due diligence on particular projects. But often they're brought in by people who have a particular goal in mind, so they're going to aim in that direction. Len thinks that you can bring in some professionals, economists from the state to develop a department basically that will do that due diligence in-house. Does that resonate with you at all?
It does. I think that can be done. I've talked about even having within the treasurer's office kind of an equity check on certain proposals by legislation. Really, if they're going to do a program, how many people does it affect and what type of groups? Is it all a South County issue? Is it a Blackstone Valley? Is it different ethnic groups? So that the treasurer's office should supply data to the legislation so that they can make decisions. We're thinking of proposing this bill. How does it work without the diversity within our state? Who's it going to affect and who's going to benefit from it and who's not going to benefit from it? Those are things. Treasurer's office are number crunchers. We're kind of the data geeks of the world. And that's who I am. And that's what we can provide. I've always been able to provide information so people can make good, informed decisions. Otherwise, they're just kind of winging it. And that's not how we should be running the state, and not how we should be handling hundreds of billions of dollars on an annual basis.
Jim, we're coming close to the end of time. Not to the end of time, at the end of the segment. I hope we have a lot more time left.
Yeah.
anything that we haven't touched on that you think is important to mention?
Well, I do think, my opponent has talked about what they call this social investing, that you want to use the power of your investments to change decisions at the companies and how they manage and how they operate, which is nice in theory, but it would be his own social agenda. At the end of the day, I look at the treasurer as a fiduciary responsibility. We're supposed to maximize returns in a legal basis. I'm not going to invest in an illegal operation, but do I want to make 6%? And because they are more environmentally friendly, or that they only use workers from a certain part of the world, or do I want to make 8%? Or right now, the treasurer's office will not invest with any company that deals with firearms. Again, on a personal level, I can make those decisions. But when I'm handling somebody else's money, and my obligation is to make sure that they can get their cost of living increases back and to maximize returns, I don't think that's my right. And I definitely know it's not my responsibility. And I think those are things that when you start making decisions about who you're going to vote for, think about those things. The state can always make an adjustment and tell me what to do through a legislative action, but they should never do it. I should never have that power. And lastly, vote Lathrop. Go to my website, check it out. Give me a call anytime people have questions. I'm always here.
And Jim, one more time, the website
is www.lathrop4ri.com, and the 4 is FOR, not the number. And check it out.
Frank, I have just one question, and lucky for James, this is the first time I'm asking this campaign season. But in order to get elected, you need some of the independents, maybe some of the Democrats come vote your way. I feel like we live in the age where people won't go and vote for an R no matter what. What do you say to those people that it is okay to vote locally for a Republican, or what are you telling people who will never vote that way?
Well, when I get in front of them, I usually be able to change their mind. I said, having the union endorse me, which was a big one. A lot of the Democrats have come out and supported me financially and personally. I understand the math behind getting elected. At the end of the day, vote for the most qualified person. That's what I tell them. Follow up on it. And, I'm a very moderate Republican. I believe in fiscal conservative, but I'm very socially responsible. I have my causes. Mental health is a big issue for me. I love public art. So, at the end of the day, you've got to make a decision. And, it shouldn't be R or D. I heard that all the time. Oh, God, I wish you had a D in front of your name. Well, I don't. But I'm still me. I'm still Jim Lathrop. You get what you see. And at the end of the day, I hope what you see, like what you see.
Jim, I guess I have one more question. And I wonder how coordinated and how well the Republican team is working. Are they working together, or are there people who are out just running their own campaigns?
I think it's a little hit or miss. I think I've reached out to a lot of the local people because I need their support. I'm not a well-known name. They're in their communities more, and I try to go out with the state reps or even council members or school committee members whenever I can, because they can introduce me to the community. The Republicans this year, we do have a new executive director. First time they have someone professionally who works full time. We're making inroads, but it's difficult. You saw this year, first time the Republicans really filled up most of the slots to have candidates. There's not going to be a huge change here in Rhode Island, but I'm hoping that I'm one of the few that go through, and slowly, I think, not controversy, but dialogue is good. I love people that argue with me, because that's only how I change my mind. I'm not fixed on what I think, and how I learn new things.
Yeah. Jim, just to interject, you mentioned about most of the spots being filled, still 30% of the legislative positions are unopposed in the general election.
But it's better than it was. There's a saying, how do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time. And that's what we got to do. Just one piece at a time.
James, one more time, can you give us the date and information for that debate?
Yep. So it's October 18th at 4:00 on WPRO. And then we have a second one scheduled for, I think it's November 4th on Channel 12. And we're hoping to try to get one more in.
Jim Lathrop, thank you much.
Thank you.
Good information, and we hope people will, will absorb it and learn from it.
That's it. Frank, thanks for bringing us this interview. Of course, we have invited James's opponent, and we'll schedule it as soon as we hear back from them. We're working with, 100 different candidates on calendars and schedules. So anytime between October 1st and November 7th, probably not November 7th, probably a couple days before that, we will get to as many candidates as we can.
It is a challenge to juggle this all around, but if there are candidates out there who are listening or them, this is an opportunity for them to get out and reach out to people. That's what you want to do in a campaign, and we're appreciative of those who come on. And again, our whole purpose here is just to provide information for the voters, and so that they can vote intelligently.
That's it. You can find this video as well as all of our interviews on whatsupnuke.com. You can also listen to them. Those are also available on whatsupnuke.com or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if anything comes out of this, at least you get to meet some of your fellow neighbors.
There you go.
And we get to chat more often. Hat of the day, Frank Brosnitz. What is it?
I had thought this was from a minor league team in Albuquerque. But I took a look to see if I could see this. I can't find it. It may be an obsolete. These minor league teams are great because they will change their logos every couple of years because it's a pretty good income area for them. I collect, for those who aren't aware, I collect these hats. I've got them from all over the world, and the stupid thing is I don't leave a label inside to tell me where they're from. So.
That's all right. If anybody notices it, let us know. Ryan at whatsupnuke.com. All right, Mr. Brosnitz, thank you for setting this up, and we will do it again real soon.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right. On behalf of Frank Brosnitz and myself, we want to thank our guests for joining us. Again, if you missed any portion of this interview, want to rewatch it, want to share it, all available on whatsupnuke.com. You can also listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as all of our other interviews from last week, this week, and the ones upcoming. Thanks for watching.